sir, for being a part. And I'll let y'all know we've kind of already started. You know, we're here now, but we were having a discussion prior to, and my sister was a part of that, and so I know she's still watching. Says she's watching. Charlene, thank you, and we'll make sure that we bring you back next Tuesday, and we'll work all these kinks out. We'll try and do something, because I think tonight we might have to do a continuation. There's a lot of information that that I believe people need, and Pastor Terrence, I'll tell you this: I was as I was thinking about tonight, it was difficult for me to sleep last night, you know, and not because of trouble or problems, but I was just thinking about what we're going to discuss. And I was so excited that, you know, kind of had me pumped up. So, I just believe that if people are hearing tonight, that it's going to be a blessing to them. It's really going to help, and help us in where we are to properly position ourselves. And I'm sharing this to my page here, so you hear some noise here. But I think it's going to help us to in life, you know. So I want to just kind of
Absolutely.
just kind of jump in, and I guess what I like to do at times is whenever the Holy Spirit gives me something, I'm a marketing guy, so I tend to I tend to ask questions, or what I'll do is I'll ask someone what they think about a subject. So I was in thinking about this particular subject. I did ask someone. I said, you know, if you were to develop a team, a support team to help you in life, I said, who would be on your team? And the person said, okay, well, Jesus would be on my team. It'll be Jesus only. And I said, okay. I said, great. That's wonderful. I said, now that's wonderful. I said, and I believe that every believer has Jesus. At least I pray that every believer has Jesus on their team, because he's the coach, you know, he's the owner of the team. But and we talked about this a little bit. I think what's interesting is that, you know, we know scripturally that Jesus, you know, of course, was born, you know, went through life, and for the first 30 years he lived a life as a carpenter, as a son. You know, Joseph and Mary have friends, you know, probably perform miracles. You know, one is talked about him as being 12 in the scripture, but something different happened when he got ready for the mission of the gospel, that
Yes.
he actually started to systematically build a support, or build a team for ministry. You know, and as we look at scripture, you know, he was very systematic in doing it and developing his team, recruiting team. So I thought about this for life. I said, you know what? You know, we have a mission called life. You know,
Yes.
we're all living today. And so I just want to talk about that tonight, maybe, you know, just have you kind of share as we're walking through life, as we're walking through this phase of life, how important it is to have those systems, to have a support system for whatever the mission is, you know, whether it's marriage, whether it's finances, whether, you know, it's a business. We need those support systems in place. And it's something we're going to talk about, and hopefully give people some tools to make sure we have the proper setup for life.
That's good. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I definitely am a proponent and am convinced that in order to get through just life in general, you know, if you just think about the concept of nobody being an island, meaning nobody was designed to be by themselves. So if we go back to the earliest thought process for this topic matter, was when God created the heavens and the earth, and then he planted a garden eastward in Eden, and he put a guy there. And I think he named him, let's go with Adam. So he named him Adam, and the Bible says that God says it wasn't good for Adam to be alone. Now, that word alone is different from the word lonely, because that word alone has to do with being all one. It's a compound word that's made up of the two words, all one. It wasn't good for Adam to exist without a support.
Wow.
And so what God called her was a helpmeet, but another word for helpmeet is a support. And so God decided, you know, and here's the thing that I want to, you know, interject right out the gate, because I agree there's a lot to discuss here. But the thing I want to interject right out the gate is the fact that it wasn't that Adam couldn't have gone it alone.
Mhm.
It wasn't that Adam wasn't fully equipped. He was 100% within himself. He had amazing abilities, amazing capacity, amazing insight, foresight, connection. He was a bad man by himself. So the reason why the support was needed was because God decided it wasn't good for man to be all one.
Mhm.
Not only that, he proved it because he equipped Adam with some equipment that spoke to that same thing that he had on board. So the thing that made him ready and that made him in a position to be able to utilize his capacity to share his potential with the support was that God put some functionality into his makeup that made him be able to share what he had with somebody else.
Mhm.
And when God decided it's a God idea. Support is a God idea.
Wow.
It's not a man idea. It's not an ideology that's scripted in, I can't make it without me. It's just that God decided that we're better together.
Wow. Wow.
And so when he created Eve, he created her with some equipment on board that was perfectly fitted for the equipment that he had given to Adam.
Mhm.
So he made them to be able to work together in order to accomplish his purpose.
Mhm.
That's the first thing I want to say. The second thing I want to say is that God didn't create Adam and Eve to work succinctly together in harmony. All of their components and all of their compartments work together to accomplish number two, which is the mission and the plan of God.
Mhm.
Adam didn't need Eve for his pleasure, even though I'm sure she was a beautiful woman of God,
Mhm.
but Adam didn't need her in order to accomplish what he was capable of doing. Adam needed her because together they were to accomplish the mission and the plan of God. So that's the thing I want to clear up in our thinking out the gate, is that I don't need a support system, a ministry team, and all of these things around me to accomplish what I'm sent to do, accomplish me. I need that to accomplish the mission of God.
Wow. Wow.
So immediately we have to take ourselves off the table to say that we need the support system in order to accomplish the will and the plan of God. And I'm gonna go to number 3 real quick.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
So it's a God idea. So Ephesians talks about the fact that he gave some apostles, pastors, prophets, evangelists, teachers for the work of the ministry,
Mhm.
for the perfecting of the saints, for the work of the ministry. So that's the thing, that we need each other in order to accomplish what it is, the mission that God has given us. So I'll pause right there.
No, that's because when you talk about mission, I mean that should be our focus, and I guess important for each and every person to know what their mission is, and to know what the
Yes.
mission is, to know what their assignment is. Floating through life trying to figure it out. And we talked somewhat about this, but I just found it interesting. And I'm gonna get your insight on this. That Jesus, he used a strategy to systematically recruit men to help him for the mission of the gospel. And I did a little
Absolutely.
research. I did a little research and to kind of talk about what individual gifts those just a few of the men had. And it said that Andrew was an influencer, so he was the first one that Jesus actually recruited. He was the first apostle. And it's believed that Jesus actually could, or understood he would get Peter, who was his brother, because he had Andrew, because he knew Andrew was an influencer. He had John, who was a good listener. He's the more passionate writer in the passage, in the Bible. He had Peter, who was his ride or die guy. Peter was the
Yes.
one cutting off the ears, and you find him in one place on the day of Pentecost. He's sharing the gospel, and then before that, he's cussing and denying Jesus. So and point being that on our team, sometimes we get a little of both. We kind of get some pluses and we get some minuses. You have Philip, who was, cultural, John, who was a confidant, and then within his team, he had three men that he knew he can count on. You often see Peter, James, and John. That's the inner circle of the circle. So in saying what you just said, as far as the mission goes and our mission for life, and do you think that we should use a strategy? Is there, when we're talking about business, when we're talking about marriage, when we're talking about current events today, and dealing with COVID and all the challenges today, and some people losing their jobs, does it make good sense to make sure we have a strong support system to help us maneuver through these times in life?
Absolutely. So my first answer is yes. And I think that was really good information just in regard to the type of people, men that Jesus surrounded himself with. And it's very amazing to me as you were going through that list that every man's strength and every man's deficit, Jesus was well aware of it. And he chose them in spite of their deficits, what we would consider to be a deficit.
Yeah.
And I often think about this, especially because everybody gravitates to Peter because he was just so rambunctious and he was so willing to do, to be that guy who would be the bad cop. He didn't mind, stepping out, being vocal and, saying what he felt that needed to be said. But the thing that resonates with me is that Jesus chose all of them, realizing that these were not extraordinary men when he chose them, but they were ordinary men.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
He chose ordinary men. There were extraordinary men that existed in the temple, in the religious order of the church, that was an established order that was already present when Jesus came on the scene. He didn't go to the church to choose those guys. He went to the city. He went to the ghetto. He went to, areas where that was not popular and began to choose guys who he knew had deficits. Mm. So my thinking of it, Pastor Brown, is that when Jesus chose these guys out the gate, he probably they didn't have ministry capacity or skill set in them at the time they were chosen. Mm. But Jesus could see in them something that they possessed that they would have on the outset, or at the end of the day. But at the beginning of the day, these guys were tore up. They were jacked up. They were, horrible people that we wouldn't select.
Right.
So going back to your question in regard to, do we need people around us? My first answer is yes. We do need to make sure we have people that are trustworthy and people that can, help us in the areas of our weakness. The Bible says that, Jesus, bear our infirmities, our weaknesses, but I think the thing that intrinsically for me, just by the weird way that I think, is that if you have people around you, because think about this, the guys that Jesus chose, and I have to think of it this way, and that's why you're here to correct me and balance me.
No.
So think about this. Jesus chose these guys, and each one of them had their deficits that in some way made them pull back in regard to the responsibility or the job or the mission that they were supposed to be accomplishing for him. Even though Peter was amazing, he got to that hall and he denied Jesus 3 times. Mm-hmm. He said, "I don't know you." He started cussing. Mm-hmm. This is the guy Jesus chose to help him to be his support.
Yeah.
So ultimately, just one little caveat that I want to say, while yes, we need people around us, I think as we are bringing and allowing and needing people around us, we have to be convinced ourselves of the call of God for the ministry, the destiny, the purpose, the plan, the potential we have. We have to first be all in, because even being all in, you don't have the capacity to accomplish, because vision should always be bigger than the person.
Right. Yes. Right.
If your vision is big enough that you can do it by yourself, it probably didn't come from God. However, this is the one point I want to make just right here, is that while we need people around us, the thing that resonates with me is the people that come around us to help us, they are going to fail us. They're going to fall short. They're going to get weak. They're going to get faint-hearted. We're going to get weak and faint-hearted. Listen, the people, you all that's listening, I'm not just saying that y'all are horrible. The people that's carrying the vision and the mission, it gets heavy for us. It got heavy for Jesus in the garden, that he was like, you know what? I'm not going. I'm not doing this. Lord, Father, let this cup pass from me. But the tenacity that has to be built into us before we invite people on board is that I can't, this thing that I'm carrying, this thing that every person is carrying is bigger than the person.
Yeah.
However, I have to be so grounded and so rooted in the fact that I'm supposed to do this, that when people who get on board and turn their backs, you can't go back.
No.
So here's what I'm saying. If we go into this thinking that the support system around us is going to be that system that, you know, is going to take us through, and the weight of your accomplishing this is on the people around you, then that vehicle is going to crash most miserably, because there are going to be ebbs and flows. There are going to be challenges. And so it always has to be what the Bible calls a steadfast and unmovableness in the person, in the leader. And when I say the leader, I'm not just talking about the pastor, because every person is a leader.
Right.
So everybody listening to this opportunity that we're discussing, you are a leader. There's something that you have. And as you strike out to accomplish what you were called to do, it has to be so big that you can't do it by yourself, but realize that when you strike out to do it, that you are willing, and I'm going to be quiet after this.
No,
you have to be willing to go it alone. That's my point.
Wow.
I can't do it by myself, but I'm willing to keep going and to give it a try. That's the tenacity. So yes, we need people around us, but when people come around us, we have to have that mindset that I'm going to do this by myself. I can't. Obviously, I can't do it by myself. But my plan is I'm going to be so dedicated, so all in, so geared up, so gung-ho to do this. That is what's going to be the feeder to make other people say, whoa, okay, so he going to do this. Don't he realize this is too big for him? Yeah, he realizes it. She realizes it. But that leader that I'm calling each of you that's listening to become is that I'm going to eat this elephant by myself. I can't do it, but I'm going to sit here. And then what happens is that drive and that tenacity, people be like, whoa, man, let me go help. Boom. And then they start. So you become an influencer versus just a person who select people with skills. You select people with passion.
Wow.
I'm done.
Well, no, listen, we can drop the mic down, right? You. But I think that's so powerful what you just said, because it's, I mean, and you correct me if I'm wrong. So what I hear you saying is that the passion you have for the mission or vision, whatever that is for your life, will be what attracts other people to your team to be your support. You know,
Absolutely.
So not so much looking at selecting based on gifts or ability, but but that passion is that driver or the magnet that pulls people towards you. And everyone loves passion. I mean, you can be passionate about anything, and people will find you. But here's what, I was talking to a couple who made a decision to get married. They had that love glassy look in their eye, and one of the things I mentioned to them, I said, what's going to be important for you now that you made this decision is to make sure that you are attracting people, because you got the passion and love for each other, but you're finding people to become a part of your team. In other words, you have this mission, you have this vision for your life, but maybe taking time to think about who you want to help support that marriage. And here's what I mean by that: just having a person that you can call, someone you can be accountable to, someone that
Absolutely.
you can open your heart, a mentor. One of the things that kind of, I won't say annoys me, is when I hear people who see somebody doing something and for whatever reason they allow jealousy to kind of work in their lives, where they say, well, God has shown favor to brother so and so, sister so and so, and but I'm not doing that. And what it kind of says to me is that they have a desire to do it, but necessarily haven't put the things in place to accomplish that goal. So for life and for us, I think if there's something we know that we have a desire to do and we feel God's calling us to do, it doesn't make sense to maybe find a mentor, to find that support, to find someone to help us to track toward that place, or that mission, that goal that we have set for us.
Yeah, my thinking is, if I'm called to it, start tracking towards it. And I just saw somebody put in the chat, being contagious.
Wow, that's good.
That the thing that you are so passionate about doing, it becomes like a disease, a virus, that you are so infected with it that when you get around other people, it just comes off on them. And so while we think, from a business model, which is good, but which could be bad, from a business model, setting up the team and setting up the things that we need to make this thing run effectively, from a traditional model of having equipment and having, audio equipment, having, snazzy devices and things that can do things that we needed to do, track matrices, track growth trends, track, given trends, track attendance, good lighting, great music, all of this support stuff, which is good, but it becomes ineffective if it just becomes a show.
Right.
And it becomes entertainment and not ministry. And I think there's a distinct difference, that the team and support that we need is that group of people that will be willing to minister alongside and not entertain, because it's grunt work, it's dirty, it's gruesome, it's difficult. You have to be willing to be thick-skinned versus thin-skinned. So that's beyond just selecting a person. That person develops a passion for it also.
Right.
The team that we select, or that we are selected on to be a part of a team, is intricate for me, because it transcends the model that the business world has established. We need structure, we need order, and we need systems, and we need things. But I think the call of God for ministry, it transcends that traditional model. And I think that we have to be careful, because I can't do it until I get people around me that's going to help me get it done. I'm going to go ahead and strike out on this. And if God is in it, if God is a part of it, then people will, your passion, again, that word contagious, your passion for it is going to draw other people around you to become support. That's really, honestly, after 15 years in ministry, honestly, the support that I feel to be most effective are people that are passionate about what you're passionate about, that you don't have to choose and say, do this, because now you're doing it at my request. But do you have the drive, the passion, the love, the dedication? Are you willing to go it alone? Because I'm willing to go it alone. So that's the thing. I'm willing to strike out and keep pushing. And if I end up by myself, then that's a sign. maybe I'm not the leader that I need to be,
Mhm.
you know. So
Now I'm gonna switch a little bit, just to kind of talk about relationships and business, because I'm, we're talking more in the confines of church, and an organization, but want to kind of switch to maybe relationships and whether it's a marriage, whether it's a business, something interesting. I don't know whether I heard it or read it, um, and you appreciate this as a Cowboy fan, you know. Emmett Smith talked about, I guess, had a conversation with this guy that some people may know named Michael Jordan. I'm not sure if people know who he is, but yeah, possibly people know who he is, right? Uh,
possibly.
he had, I guess he gave him a call, and he called him to ask him about business and, why some athletes aren't, moving toward the realm of starting their own businesses. And, and he was getting some business ideas from him. So to make a long story short, he asked me, so what, why is that? Why don't we see more athletes opening restaurants, opening up businesses, And his response to him was, because they didn't do what you just did. And he said, well, what did I just do? He said, you called and you asked me about business. He said, you reached out, and you wanted to know information. So I guess my point is that for his particular mission, he decided that the person he wanted to have on his team, he decided to make an appointment with them to 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 get information from them. So, I mean, for us, kind of going back to what I said earlier, there's some people, maybe it's marriage, it's business, whatever it is. I encourage people to, if you find somebody who's doing what you want to do better than you, then maybe set an appointment with them. Take them to lunch, take them to dinner. I heard you teach and talk about, God putting gifts in us, and and through the power of Spirit, it's already in us, and that those gifts are dormant, waiting to be awakened. But sometimes maybe in our life we need that support, we need that person to help us to pull that gift out of us. So let's just talk about that for a little bit, making that right connection, or finding that person that is a mentor, that is, that support for a person to help you get to those next stages in life.
I think that's very true when you think about the two terms I'm thinking of is one you mentioned, which is mentor, which is a person that has the capacity and the ability to model something in front of you. They're not telling you how to do it. They're not explaining to you what it is. They're just walking it out.
Right.
So I think it's amazing that if it's something you're passionate about, and we think of it from a business model perspective, is that like when I was in college, the area of my degree, there was a time period where we did what we call internships.
Mm.
And so the thing I was going to school for that I was passionate about doing, they said, well, if you're really passionate about doing it, then go and find some areas or some businesses or some organizations that are already doing the thing you're passionate about, and insert yourself into that model and learn what it is they're doing, how they're doing it, and glean from it by doing it yourself. So the mentor aspect of it is I'm following in your footsteps. I'm looking at how you are, setting your schedule, setting your calendar. I'm sitting in with you while you're talking to clients or doing counseling, or standing over your shoulder while you're building graphs or whatever it is that thing is. From a mentoring perspective, is actually following in the footsteps. So okay, I'll go back biblical again. Even though we're still talking secular, from Elisha, he followed him. He wanted, he says, look, I want that double portion of what you got.
Mm.
And so Elijah became a mentor to him by allowing Elijah. He says, well, okay, if you see me when I go up. In other words, if you follow me close enough, if you allow that thing that I'm walking in that you want so bad, if you are willing to follow me, then you will become it. You will have it.
Wow.
It will transfer itself to you. So transference happens as we are being mentored and watching and looking and viewing, it transfers. Then that second word I was thinking of was the word coach. You know, a coach is different from a mentor because a coach is not modeling it in front of you. If you think, let's go with your example, Michael Jordan, some that you said people may have possibly heard of, Phil Jackson.
Yeah.
You know, as he's being coached, it's different because Phil is not on the court making shots and doing layups and dunking and, you know, doing fancy moves. Phil is actually seeing the potential in the Jordan, and he's pulling that potential out of him.
That's good. Yeah.
So the coaching is a different aspect from mentors. A lot of people say, well, I need a mentor. Maybe you do, but maybe you might need a coach because Michael Jordan was way greater than a Phil Jackson in terms of his skill set.
Right.
But Phil had a skill to pull out of Jordan what he saw the greatness in him. So that's the different aspect when we think from that, you know, non-church model, so to speak, to realize that, you know, we see something in people that we may not have that gift of to do it, but we have the ability to pull out of that person the thing that we see, or they have the ability to pull out of us the thing that they see. So I'm thinking from that perspective, those two concepts are very needed and very resourceful when it comes to thinking from a business aspect of, you know, becoming efficient and effective at that job. Whether it's a doctor, they do internships. If it's a lawyer, it's an internship. It's following somebody, it's learning from a person that's doing it. Even if that person may not be better than you, you still need somebody to transfer that their capacity and their insight and their feel for your passion. So I agree with you. In long story short, go find somebody to make an appointment with them.
Well, I mean, it's something you just said, just as far as you know, that gifting ability in you, so it doesn't die with you. You know, you connect with someone, you know, so that prophet to prophet relationship, that vision and plan or whatever was in him that he transferred didn't die with him, but he was able to share that with someone else. I think we're talking about Jesus and his disciples. You know, maybe the connection or the recruiting for him, you know, with them was really not. And you mentioned it's not so much as them, him needing them, but maybe them needing him. So he was able to pull gifts out of them that they needed for the vision and mission they would have for their life as they went out to, you know, to share the gospel.
Yeah, and he did both. We see in the ministry of Jesus where he's demonstrating his relationship with God before them. He goes, he takes them up. You use the three, Peter, James, John. Can you watch with me for an hour to go pray? He's mentoring, and they're watching this guy go and meet the Father. So they see it, you know, being lived out in front of them. Then the other times he says he got them together. He said, y'all go out 2 by 2. Now he's coaching. He's saying, you know, he's in many ways, they see him do miracles. They see him do all this stuff. They watch, they are gleaning from him. So then they go out, they meet a guy who's possessed. They couldn't get the devil out the guy, you know, and so they had to pull the coach in. And so they went out to demonstrate what they thought they had gleaned, but they hadn't perfected it. And they wanted to know, Jesus, why can't we cast this devil out? He says, well, you know, okay, I'm going to give you the next level. You know, some things come but by fasting and praying. You've been doing a lot of watching, but you haven't been doing a lot of fasting. You have been doing a lot of praying. And then other times, you know, he send them out, like I said, 2 by 2, go door to door. When you go there to meet these people and they don't receive you, you know, shake the dust off your feet. That's coaching. You know, they're actually doing it and not just standing by watching and gleaning.
That's good. That's really good. And you kind of touched on what, you know, the perfect segue into our next talk area is, you know, what are some good support, you know, system to have set up? And you kind of mentioned one as far as prayer, you know, just having that, you know, that right support so that we can be able to maneuver through life, you know, and that prayer fuels our passion. So let's talk about that for a second. What are some good support systems to set up in the life of a believer or of someone today as we're dealing with all that we're facing? What are some things you would suggest to put in place to make sure we're able to maneuver through?
I guess I would go inward again. And I think the thing I want to drive home just from my aspect of this conversation is the personal passion that's required to, Genesis 2:7, Jesus, the Bible says that God breathed into that person the breath of life and they became. So number one, I think that burden that you would need for yourself to galvanize this whole thing for it to work, in my thinking adequately, is that I have to be solid and grounded in myself. So, but just from a practical standpoint, though, I think that, time management, not sleeping all day, getting out to bed, in terms of support. It used to be a time that you had to go out and fill out an application. You had to go to the place to fill it out, and you had to dress a certain way, and you had to prepare yourself a certain way. But times have changed. And as I was thinking through this conversation, this pandemic that we are living through has turned over the apple cart of the traditional norms that we would put in place, like the matrices that measure certain things. That it's been turned over. The playing field has been leveled. And so the things that would be traditionally a business model is different now. You can't touch people anymore. You can't interact or interface with people anymore. It's a whole new ball game. And how do we get back on top of our game to be able to present the kingdom and present our passion or our business or our values to people in this environment? I agree. Prayer is definitely one. That personal relationship, reading, not even just reading the Bible, but being information. Hosea said people perish or fail to thrive because they lack information. And not because it's not available, it's because they reject it.
Wow.
So I think that's a support, is information. Much reading, study to show yourself approved, not just, in the things of God, but just in anything that you're going to do or become astute and effective at. I think one of those support things that we have to do is be willing to learn and to get information, go to the library, search it out, do it, fail, try it. It doesn't work. Now I know what didn't work. I didn't fail. It just didn't work that time. Just something quick that you may appreciate. You ever use Formula 409?
Sure.
Yeah. So as I was thinking through that, Formula 409 is as a result of the guy who made it the first time it failed.
Wow.
So he tried another one. The second time it failed. The 100th time it failed.
Wow.
The 300th time it failed. The 408th time it failed. Guess when it worked?
409.
409th time. Thus, Formula 409, the 408 formulas didn't work.
Wow.
So striking out, doing it is a support, is saying that I believe this can work, because I think in some way to become great at it, you have to do it and not be afraid, because we are so accustomed to being path followers that we have aborted being trailblazers.
That's good. That's good. Wow.
And so, all of the traditional support stuff that, intrinsically we know, but I think we have to go back to the grassroots. I think this pandemic is making us go back to our grassroots. And it's uncomfortable.
It is. And so, so what I'm hearing you saying as well is that, the road to success starts with failing. You know, I heard someone say fail and fail often, you know. I think sometimes we look at failure and we think, man, God has forsaken us, he's forgotten us, it didn't work, when in actuality, as you said, a lot of the products we see, it's like someone told me whiteout was an accident. You know, so a lot of this stuff that that we use today actually started with a support system that failed, or a mission that failed. But when they tried again, they found success. So here's what I want to do. I know we've you know, it's 8 o'clock, and I thank everyone for being with us. And I'm going to put you on the spot, you know, and hopefully you'll say yes. I'm going to say a quick prayer.
Done.
I'm going to say a quick prayer. You say yes, but I want to continue this next week, because because we have some more information that we want to talk about, and maybe come talk more about the practical side, and you know, maybe building relationships, and trying to make sure that we have the support system, and it's more practical as far as just family members and those people that we have, you know, prayer partners, just different support systems we can put in place. Because I think one of the tools of the enemy today is to kind of keep people in isolation. You know, I think it's a part of his plan that he can keep you by yourself, alone, isolated. You mentioned no one's an island, but he's trying to make people feel like, if you know that you can I'll isolate you and have you alone, and that way he's picking people off. So even though we're separated, you know, and can't touch each other, we're keeping distance. I think there's some ways we can support and find ways to connect. Social media is one. We're doing this. But I want to come back next week and talk more about it. So if you would join me next week, can we get some likes, hearts?
I would be honored.
Okay.
I'd be honored to do it. You're just repaying me back for the times I put you on the spot.
It's all good. See, brothers do that, man. We can do that in love.
Hey, I like to challenge the people that are listening and those who hear this, you know, to reach out and touch somebody, call somebody, get out of your comfort zone, and, you know, see how somebody is doing, see what somebody needs. You know, be the support yourself to somebody.
Wow, that's good.
And thereby, you know, like I was on my way to a city today, and I reached out, and I'm always, you know, so relational. That's another tool, you know, being relational. And reached out and called a person, and realized that they needed some help. And I just became the support to that person, you know, immediately. I think if we can do that, well, I got needs myself. Great. Then if you got needs yourself, then call somebody and help them with their needs. And then we'll see, you know, our needs being met. But thank you so much, Pastor Brown, for the privilege and the opportunity.
Absolutely. I'm glad you
came. I look forward to next week, sir.
Absolutely. And what I hear you saying too is that so you sowed a seed of support in believing that you would, you know, get support. So you sowed that seed.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's okay. So
knowing that I'm going to get it, because Galatians 6 and 7 got to be right.
Yeah.
Be not deceived.
Mm-hmm.
God is not mocked. Whatever a man sow,
that shall he also. Yeah.
That's a good segue to end this.
So please come back and join us next Tuesday night. We're going to continue the conversation because we have some more information we want to share with you. I pray that you were blessed by this.